Hello and welcome back to Grow with Keely. And I want to start this episode a little different. I'm going to start this off with a question. Have you ever caught yourself replaying the same chapter of your life over and over again? The mistakes you wish you've never made, the relationship that broke you, the childhood you never deserved, the version of you that was just trying to survive but now feels embarrassing to look back on, the opportunities you missed, the words you wish you'd said, the people you wish you never trusted, and maybe you spent years carrying those things around with you. Maybe every time something goes wrong, your mind drags you back there. Back to the moments that hurt, back to the moments that changed you, back to the moments that made you question who you are. And somewhere along the way, without even realizing it, you stopped seeing yourself as a person with a past and started seeing yourself as the past. You become the girl with trauma, the mum who struggled, the person who made mistakes, the person who got it wrong, the person who should be further ahead by now, the person who should have healed by now. But what if you've been carrying an identity that was never yours to keep? What if the worst thing that happened to you isn't the most important thing about you? What if the biggest mistake you've ever made doesn't get to decide your future? Because here's what I need you to hear today. You are not your trauma. You are not your mistakes. You are not the version of yourself that was doing the best they could with what they knew at the time. And you are certainly not defined by the chapters that almost broke you. You are the person who survived them. You are the person who kept going. You are the person who got back up. And if you're listening to this today, there's a very good chance you spent so long focusing on what you've lost, what you've been through, and what you wish was different. But you've forgotten to stop and look at how far you've actually come. So today, I want us to do something different. I want us to stop staring at the rear view mirror. I want us to acknowledge the past, honour the lessons, and then gently turn our attention towards the person we're still becoming. Because your story didn't end at the hardest chapter, and there is still so much more of your life left to write. One of the hardest things about the past isn't always what happened. It's how often it still visits you. Maybe you're driving home, folding washing, lying in bed, scrolling your phone or trying to enjoy a good day. And suddenly you're back there. Back in the conversation, back in the mistake, back in the trauma, back in the moment that changed everything. And you know logically it's over. You know years may have passed, but your mind still replays it like it happened yesterday. And sometimes it's the what ifs. What if I said something different? What if I'd left sooner? What if I'd make better choices? What if that never happened to me? What if my life would have been easier? What if I wasn't carrying all of this? And before you know it, you spent an hour, a day, or sometimes years trying to rewrite a chapter that has already been written. And the truth is, most of us don't just grieve what happened. We grieve what could have been, the childhood we deserved, the support we needed, the relationship we hoped for, the version of life we imagined. And that grief is real. But here's something I've learned. The same experiences that wounded us often taught us things we wouldn't have learned any other way. Not because the pain was okay, not because we deserved it, but because survival has a way of teaching us things comfort never could. Maybe your trauma taught you compassion. Maybe your mistakes taught you boundaries. Maybe your heartbreak taught you self-respect. Maybe your struggles taught you resilience. Maybe your darkest seasons taught you how to recognize light. I know there are parts of my own story I wish had never happened, parts I would never choose, parts that still hurt. But I also know I wouldn't be the person sitting here talking to you today without them. The challenge isn't pretending the past didn't matter. The challenge is refusing to let it be the only thing that matters. Because if all you ever do is look backwards, you'll miss the evidence that you're no longer the person who lived through those moments. You're wiser now. You're stronger now. You've learnt things. You've survived things. You've grown. And maybe it's time to stop asking, what if things would have been different? And start asking, look how far I've come because I kept going. I want to be really careful with what I'm about to say. Because when people hear phrases like, don't let your trauma define you, it can sometimes feel like you're being told to get over it, move on, or pretend it didn't even happen. But the thing is, that's not what I'm saying. Trauma matters. It changes things. It can affect the way you think, the way you trust, the way you see yourself, and the way you move through the world. And some of you listening have survived things that nobody should have ever had to survive. Some of you had to grow up too quickly. Some of you spent years in survival mode. Some of you are still carrying wounds that nobody else can see. And those experiences deserve to be acknowledged. But here's what I want you to think about. When you introduce yourself to yourself, who do you see? Do you see a survivor, or do you only see the wound? Do you see your strength, or do you only see what happened to you? Because somewhere along the way, many of us stopped saying, I experienced trauma, and started saying, I am damaged, I am broken, I am difficult, I am too much, I am not enough, and those are not the same thing. Trauma may have shaped you, but it's not the sum of you. A tree shaped by strong winds still grows. A river changed by rocks still flows. And a person who has experienced trauma is still a whole person. You are not just the child who was hurt. You are not just the relationship that broke you. You are not just the diagnosis. You are not just the anxiety. You are not just the mistake. You are not just the hardest chapter of your life. You are also the person who survived, the person who adapted, the person who learned, the person who kept showing up even when life felt impossibly heavy. Yes, trauma shaped parts of you, but so did your courage, so did your kindness, so did your resilience, so did every single day you got back up and carried on. The danger isn't that trauma happened. The danger is believing that trauma gets the final say on who you are, because your story is bigger than what happened to you. There are chapters of joy still waiting. There are chapters of growth still waiting. There are chapters of peace still waiting. And you deserve to meet the version of yourself that exists beyond survival mode. Not because your trauma didn't matter, but because you matter too. And you have always been more than the things that hurt you. Before we go any further, I want you to do something. I want you to stop thinking about everything you still need to fix. Everything you haven't achieved yet. Everything you wish was different. Everything you're still struggling with. And I want you to look backwards for a moment, not to stay there, not to get stuck there, but to see something you may have forgotten. Look how far you've come. Seriously, look at the person you used to be. The person who didn't know if they were going to get through that chapter. The person who was scared, lost, overwhelmed, heartbroken, exhausted. The person who was just trying to survive. Now look at everything that has happened since. Look at how many curveballs life has thrown your way. Look at the setbacks, the losses, the disappointments, the plans that didn't work out, the moments you thought would break you, and yet, here you are, still standing, still trying, still growing, still becoming. I think sometimes we become so focused on where we want to be that we completely overlook where we started. We forget that the things that feel normal now were once things we prayed for, things we dreamed about, things we weren't sure we'd ever have. For me, there was a time when my past made me terrified of love, terrified of trust, terrified of letting someone in. I was convinced that if I opened my heart, the story would end the same. The pain would repeat itself. The hurt would come back. the chapter would look exactly like the chapter before it, and because of that, I kept parts of me protected, guarded, hidden, but life had other plans. Today, I've been with my husband for 12 years. I'm married to someone I love deeply, someone I trust, someone I laugh with, someone I've built a life with. And the beautiful thing is, it didn't happen because I stopped being scared overnight. It happened because little by little, I learned that not every person is the same. Not every relationship is the same. Not every chapter has to end the same way the last one did. And maybe that's something someone listening needs to hear today. Your past may explain why you're scared, but it doesn't get to decide what's possible for you. Your past may explain your caution, but it doesn't get to write every future chapter. Because people change, life changes, circumstances change, and most importantly, you change. The person you are today knows things the younger version of you didn't. You've learned, you've grown, you've survived, you've adapted, and that deserves recognition. So instead of asking yourself, why am I not further ahead? Try asking, would the version of me from 5 years ago be proud of who I am today? Because I have a feeling the question might surprise you. Maybe you've come further than you even given yourself credit for. Maybe you're stronger than you realise. Maybe you've already achieved things you once thought were impossible. And maybe, just maybe, the future still has chapters waiting for you that are far more beautiful than the ones you've already lived. Because your story didn't end in the painful chapters. You're still writing it. And that means hope is still part of your story too. One of the biggest mistakes we make when we're trying to heal is believing we need to completely change our lives overnight. And we tell ourselves, I need to stop overthinking, I need to move on, I need to heal, I need to be better. And then suddenly, healing feels like another impossible task on an already overwhelming list. So today, I want to make this simple. Not 5 months, not 5 weeks, just 5 minutes. Because sometimes 5 minutes is enough to remind yourself that your life is happening now, not in a chapter you've been replaying. So one exercise could be the evidence list. Take 5 minutes and write down what is different about me today compared to 5 years ago. Not what still needs work, not what you haven't achieved, but what is different. Maybe you're kinder to yourself. Maybe you survived something you didn't think you'd survive. Maybe you've become a parent. Maybe you've learned boundaries. Maybe you're learning to ask for help. And maybe you're simply still here. Because when we spend too much time focusing on our wounds, we forget to acknowledge our growth. Then there's another exercise you can do for 5 minutes called the Future Thank You Letter. So I want you to imagine yourself 5 years from now, write a short letter from future you. What would they thank you for? Maybe they thank you for not giving up. Thank you for going to therapy. Thank you for setting boundaries. Thank you for leaving. Thank you for staying. Thank you for believing in things could get better. This shifts your focus away from what happened and towards what's still possible. And the last activity you can do is the survivor list. For 5 minutes, write down every difficult thing you've survived, every setback, every heartbreak, every challenge, every chapter that felt impossible. Then read the list back, because sometimes we become so focused on what hurt us that we forget to acknowledge the person who made it through, you. And you might be asking why these work, because trauma and regret have a way of keeping us staring back. These exercises gently turn your head forward again, not by denying the past, not by pretending it didn't happen, but by helping you recognize something equally important. The person sitting here today, the person you've become, the person who learned, the person who adapted, the person who kept going, the person who is still growing. Because healing isn't about understanding your past. It's also about learning to see the incredible person you've become because you survived it. And I think sometimes we spend so much time looking at our scars that we forget to look at our strength. So for the next 5 minutes, I want you to stop asking, what happened to me? And start asking, who have I become because I kept going? Because I have a feeling the answer is far more powerful than you realise. Before we finish, I want to leave you with a few questions. What have you survived that deserves more credit? What version of yourself are you still punishing? What would change if you started seeing your past as proof of your strength rather than evidence of your failures? As we come to the end of this episode, I want you to take a moment, just one moment, and think about everything you've lived through. The things people know about, the things nobody knows about, the battles you spoke about, the battles you fought silently, the moments you thought you wouldn't get through, the losses, the heartbreaks, the disappointment, the trauma, the mistakes, the fear, the anxiety, and the chapters that left you questioning who you were and whether things would ever get better. Now look at where you are. Not where you wish you were, not where you think you should be, but where you are. Because despite everything life has thrown at you, you're still here. You kept going. You got back up again and again and again. And if nobody has told you recently, I want to be the person who does. I am proud of you. Not because you've done everything perfectly, not because you got it all figured out, not because you've never struggled. I'm proud of you because you kept going. I'm proud of you for every battle you fought that nobody saw, for every day you got out of bed when your heart felt heavy, for every time life knocked you down and you fought the strength to stand back up. Because life isn't measured by how many battles we face, it's measured by how many times we choose to rise after them. And you've done that more times than you probably give yourself credit for. So please, celebrate how far you come. Celebrate the version of you sitting here today, and celebrate the growth, the lessons, the healing, the courage, the resilience, the fact that you are still becoming, because you are not the person you used to be, and that deserves recognition. And remember this, there are so many people walking around carrying a past they didn't deserve, people carrying wounds they never asked for, people trying to heal from things that were never their fault. And if that's you, I hope you know this. You deserve to be recognised for making it through your darkest moments. You deserve to be recognised for surviving. You deserve to be recognised for continuing. And you deserve to be recognised for the person you are becoming. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear from you. You can find me at Safe to Grow with Keely on Facebook and Instagram, where I share gentle reminders, support, workshops, resources, and a community for people who simply need a safe place to grow. Until next time, be gentle with yourself, be proud of yourself, and remember, your past may be part of your story, but it's not the whole story, and there are still beautiful chapters waiting to be written.